Hi everyone, Chris Petri here. Thanks for stopping by. We're having some fun here in the studio. We're going to paint some carnations today. And one of our friends on our YouTube channel, Sandy, requested if I could paint some carnations and show how I go about doing it. So I figured I would do this demo on carnations. I love painting flowers. I think flowers for watercolor artists, it's like the most fun you can have is sometimes the flower paintings, because there's so much variety in shapes and colors and angles and curves, and flowers are like flowers just have like endless amounts of shapes and form to them, and tons of light and shadow, and they're also challenging because they force you to have to simplify, if I can say. So let's get right into it here. I wanted to add something new to my, I don't normally use acetate or what's called dura-lar on my my videos, but I'll mention it and I'll write it down. It's dura-lar. And basically it's a plastic, like a pretty heavy, thick plastic that you can paint on, use magic marker on. And it's great for artists, watercolor artists especially. We can paint like watercolor paint on this dura-lar, which is basically like plastic. It's thin plastic, so you can paint. Let's say you wanted to add something into your watercolor painting. Once it's dry, and you say, I wonder how that would look if I added another wash or something else in the painting, maybe like some subject matter. You can paint it on this plastic mylar, and then just place it over your painting and see how it looks. And then if you like that look of how it looks with it painted on your dura-lar, your dura-lar first, then you can just go ahead and then add it to your painting. But if it doesn't look so great, then you can just put it to the side, and instead of going in and doing it on a painting, you can do it on your plastic first. So this is great for making changes to your paintings. It's also great to make notes on or to section things off to help focus in on what you're doing. We're going to do that now. But this is, you can get dura-lar online. You can find it on the internet quite easily. I use it for this a lot, which is making notes and sectioning things off on my painting, which I'll show in just a second with our carnations. And I also use it to cover my books. I have a lot of teaching books I work out of all the time. So if I'm painting and I'm using a book to paint from, I'll put this mylar over the book across from me, so that if I'm painting and there's splashing and things like that, it's not going to affect the pages in the book. I'd rather keep the book looking really good and like original condition if I can. So I use this for a lot of different things as well. But those are the two main things I use dura-lar for. If you can pick it up maybe and try it out and see how you like it, I think you'll really find it very handy, as far as especially like putting things on, painting washes on it, and then placing it on top of your paintings to see if you might want to go darker in a section, lighter in a section, and so forth. So it's really a great thing. There's quite a few artists use this, actually, professional artists, I guess, that are out there that have been painting a long time. I've seen a lot of, in my art books, I've seen a lot of people mention using acetate or dura-lar while they work. So we're going to use the dura-lar right now. These are the carnations we're going to paint. So what I'll do is I'll put this mylar over the flowers just to make this kind of note as we think about painting these carnations. And what I would say is, if we're gonna contour draw and draw these carnations, it's a challenge. There's a lot of extreme detail in here. So this is why I was saying in the beginning, Simplifying things can be a lot more helpful when you're painting. Flowers like carnations or roses, certain flowers are incredibly detailed. So if we go in and try to do every little detail, that can get really like just, really challenging and difficult for concentration and also for the finished look of the painting. Sometimes, do you ever see those paintings where when you look at it, you kind of see it just sort of looks like someone like was just having a hard time like with the details of it. I don't know, I can't explain it, but in any case, so here let's use our mylar, or dura-lar, and we can just kind of section things off and say, okay, here's like a section, here's another section, and maybe like here's a section. So here what I did is I kind of sectioned this off, and I'll leave this plastic over my drawing when I start, and I'll make those marks on my paper, these like sections. So actually I just kind of like a pizza, I just section out some slices on the flowers, and then you can do that for the other flowers too. So maybe we'll concentrate on maybe we'll do all of these flowers, and I'll just say that this can be a really helpful tool in the beginning when you're first painting flowers, if you section things off a little bit to help you focus in on the different sections of the flower. Because I notice myself painting flowers, you can get lost in the details of it, and then all of a sudden, our drawing is drifting out and the flower's becoming like losing its shape. So let's do the outside shape first, maybe really super light with a super light pencil sketch, and maybe do some lines to section off whatever flowers you're doing. It doesn't matter. Some flowers you won't need to do this, but this could help if you're doing a very challenging flower like a carnation, right? So I'll do that there. And once we have this, we can leave this on as we draw. So we kind of have we'll draw this in super light pencil sketch, which I did this in magic marker, of course, so that you can see it better on the video. But I'll do the same thing in light pencil sketch, and then I'll go in and I'll do my drawing, contour drawing of the carnation. And these will kind of help me to zone in on these sections as I go when I'm drawing. And then this will help tremendously. So we can do, let's try this. Maybe we'll just do the one carnation. We could do all of these. It'd be more of a pretty time consuming to draw all of these. That might take a half an hour, 45 minutes to draw these all. So let's just draw the one carnation, and we'll do it in this fashion using the plastic acetate and see how it works out. I'll use some tape. I'll just take some artist tape. Line up my my magic marker drawing, and just put two pieces of tape on the top, like that, and then I'll sit this across from me. Alright, I'm going to draw a rectangle just to locate myself on the camera here. Then I'm going to do that super light sketch. Then I'm going to do the slices, in a sense, like the pizza slices in a sense here, just to section these off, like so. And we can erase this lightly when we paint, but you'll tend to find that these super light preliminary sketches, once you paint in your painting, they're really not too noticeable, and they kind of look good. A little bit of pencil lines kind of adds some more variety to your painting. And all right, so we'll go in and we'll start, and we'll start at this lower section. So I'm going to talk less now because I really have to concentrate on this. This is challenging and difficult. And if you get a little off track on things, that's okay too. You know, you can improvise and add a little extra, a couple leaves to your flower. It's not really going to hurt if you know, or you make something a little larger. If you make a leaf a little larger as you go, that's not a big deal. Again, it's we're trying to get the basic essence of the flower. We're trying to get all the correct angles and curves and details of things. But if it's not perfect, that's okay. I'm doing the stem now here, and okay, now that's how I would do this, and do that first preliminary sketch with the sections, just to have a couple lines that keep you on track as far as the whole shape of the flower. Again, I've noticed myself in the past when I sometimes do flowers, when I'm drawing flowers, let's say, and I'll just mention it, it's pretty helpful, I think. So sometimes if I'm painting or drawing flowers, and let's say let's say this is the actual, like, real flower that's in the picture that I'm working from, or if it's in, you know, an actual still life where I've set up and I've put flowers in a vase. Let's say that's the flower. Now when I'm drawing it, I notice sometimes if there's other flowers around it and things, I tend to go off course, and then I might make something you know, too wide compared to this to the drawing that I'm working from, because there's so many different things going on, and let's say in a large vase with a large grouping of flowers. But even if you're attempting a smaller, just single flower like this, there's still all those details in there. All those details in these carnations here, that if you do have it maybe sectioned off with that really super light preliminary sketch lines, then you can kind of work a section at a time as you draw and go around the flower, and you won't go too far off course. Whereas, you know, I know, see how we have the basic shape of the flower like that, and then the sections. So it's easy to drift off and make something, you know, too like oval shaped, or maybe make something too narrow, like the flower too narrow. So that's just something to keep in mind. But okay, but the main thing is, if you get it generally pretty close, you're fine, because then we're gonna paint. And once we paint, we can actually really start to get the shape of things with our paint. And so we'll put our flower photograph across from us again. And then we'll use our typical fresh, clean water. And I have my Kolinsky Sable travel brush. This is a Charles Reed travel brush, a Skoda travel brush. They're Kolinsky Sable brushes, round brushes. They're the best you can buy for watercolor. And I'll use a couple different sizes, same brush. And we'll start work here on this, and I'm going to start with maybe alizarin crimson. So this is going to be a very simple color scheme here. We're not going to have a tremendous amount of different colors. And then maybe I'll take some carmine, and I'll put some carmine on my palette too, to have some variation. And a little bit of cobalt blue maybe. Cadmium orange. Okay, now I'm going to go in with the darks first. My darkest darks, I go straight into the fresh squeezed tube paint. And then I usually I have my apron, my smock that I use, so I'll dry off some paint on that sometimes, or paper towel or tissue. So I rinse my brush in fresh clean water, and then I just take a little touch of water off of it, and then we can soften out that. So now we're going to soften that dark tonal value into a more of a medium tonal value there. And then the shadow under this side here is a little more of a purple tonal value, a color, purplish color, like a more of a shadowy color, so I'll put that there. And again, I'm just rinsing off the brush, drying the brush just a little bit with fresh clean water, and then we just work that out. And I'm following my photograph that I'm looking at across from me, and I'm trying to keep those tonal values as close as possible to what I'm seeing. And maybe I'll put a dark in just to kind of keep ourselves on track with our tonal values. So I'll mix up some, I think that's sap green or olive green there. A little bit of raw umber. Now what's challenging about this photograph, and I didn't mention this in the beginning, I looked at a lot of photographs that I was trying to find of carnations online, and sometimes when you find photographs, sometimes they're not always the greatest lighting. So you'll find a photograph and it looks good. Like this photograph, the flowers look great overall, and it's a beautiful photograph, but the lighting is a little odd. It's not really like a nice bright sunlight on the flowers. It's more of like a backlighting and a front lighting on it. So its lighting can be a little bit of a challenge, but I guess here what I'm going to try to do is, for this, is I'll try to paint it as if I'm visualizing the light coming from the right hand side. So I'll just put a reminder for me up here that the light is, our lighting source would be coming from here, and that should keep me on track of what I have to do with my light source and where I'm going to keep my shadows and light. And I'll just continue to do my stem since I'm working on this now. We'll finish that up. Okay, now we're going to continue back into our flower shapes. And then I recall too that flowers, you know, they grow outwards, so my brush strokes can kind of go outwards. Maybe not as, I'm overdoing it a little bit, but just to kind of, as we're painting, we can remember that our brush strokes can go like in a fashion similar to the flower as it grows outwards, and then we can work in a little bit of cerulean blue, maybe just to kind of do a little outer tonal value, just to kind of go around the shape of the flower a little bit, and then soften that out just a little bit here, like that. There's also another So now here, if we had painted the other flowers in, there's more stems that we could use to kind of negative shape paint around some of these other petals of the flower, but we're just going to paint this single flower, and we'll keep going here and just try to focus in on the shapes. So main thing is to get the shape correct first when we're painting this. So we look at the shape of the flowers and the shapes of the darker tonal values first. Then once we get the shapes correct, then we can soften out the lighter tonal values. And if you see some of those you'll notice the shapes of the flowers have those like very pointy kind of looks to it, pointy shapes, so we try to capture that. You can always lift up a little bit of paint off if you think you've gone too dark with something. And I guess the bottom line here is, well, if you're halfway through your flowers, don't worry about it, and then think to yourself, because we should take breaks. Now naturally I would take a break here. When I've done a few of these petals, I would take a break for 15 minutes and then come back and keep working. But since we're making the video, we'll just keep going. But always remember to, when you're doing your watercolor paintings, always keep hope and keep hopeful and keep positive until your painting's completely done, and then once it's dry and completely done, then you can look at it and say, okay, what could be better about it, or what can I do next time to make it better, or it looks fine just the way it is. But like, I know a lot of times halfway through watercolor, and you'll hear a lot of great watercolor artists say this, that you can't judge a watercolor painting when it's halfway finished or in the process of being completed. And it's kind of true, it really is true. So don't get, I do it myself still. When I'm painting, sometimes I'm doing a painting and I get frustrated halfway through it. And then I realize then once I'm finished with it 2 hours later, I go, oh yeah, it's alright, it looks fine. But watercolors can be a little bit challenging sometimes that way, where it doesn't always look great when we're in the middle of the process. But once we've completely worked with everything and got all the paint washes in, then it's much better. And then here I'm adding a little bit of cerulean blue to my petals of the flowers here, just for some variation, because I think if we just use the red, photograph does have a little bit of that purpley color. So let's do that. Make sure we get the purplish color here and there. There's some orange mixed in too, so I make sure to put that orange a little bit everywhere. And again, I rinse my brush